place.
Right.
So how often do you clean those? Once a year, like?
I'm not sure, that would, unfortunately, that is not my forte, so I would, anytime you ask something like that, I'd have to check with the person that actually does the cleaning. So, my apologies, but if you have someone you've used, just ask them, and that's not just trying to tell you you need to do it all the time, so for their money.
Have you happened to have seen the movie Manchester by the Sea?
I have not.
You probably heard about it. The whole point of the movie, the main thing, which I won't reveal, has to do with what you're talking about.
Okay.
And it's a downer movie, but you can encourage people to see it. They'll never forget
Okay,
exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
awesome. I can say, unfortunately, fortunately,
Yeah.
my movies consist of Disney. 5 and 9-year-old girls. So I'll have to work on expanding my horizon
Okay.
again.
Another code issue.
Yes.
A lot of people here have houses with attached so-called garages.
Mhm.
And there are rules about how much sheetrock you have to have and what you have to have there.
Mhm.
I know that's a little
To make it a
picky.
fire block.
1/2 inch, 3/8 probably isn't enough.
You know, if it's new construction versus old, because you have some that are grandfathered in, so.
Yeah.
So I know that we went, during the Red Cross event, we went to a home that had an attached garage, but they built an apartment over the top. And so it was new construction, so they had to really reinforce to make sure it was a fire block. And that's really important, obviously more so when you're talking like with townhomes, where you have no control over the person next to you, is making sure you have those blocks. We've definitely had those that didn't have the blocks up above in the attic space, the fire blocks, and it just makes a run. Same thing for strip malls. If there isn't those fire blocks, that's just an easy run that's gonna spread quickly.
Mm.
So you wanna do anything you can to try to make sure you have that reinforced, especially if you have flammables in your garage. And you don't stack them.
And sheetrock is the usual approach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Any other questions, just fire related for your safety? Yes?
One is, maybe this is a little bit obscure, but generators that are connected to natural gas, have you ever run into issues with that?
Not with generators. I haven't personally in all my years,
Hmm.
so many years.
About a year ago, I had my next door neighbor's gas meter caught on fire. And it was during one of our power outages that we had.
Mm-hmm.
And it was right after the power came back on after being off for a day.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as the power came back on, I heard this big boom, and I went outside and their meter was on fire. And it turns out, Puget Sound Energy was looking into it, fire department, everybody.
Mhm.
But they think what happened is if you have a generator connected to a natural gas line
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have the correct power switch
Mhm.
on the generator, you're supposed to disconnect entirely from the main circuit the power coming into your house if you're running
Mhm.
a generator.
Wow.
So they're thinking that they installed it incorrectly, the power came back on, backfed the generator
Mhm.
and shorted it out, and they think that it sent this current through the underground gas network of gas lines and just happened to come up randomly at someone's house.
Oh,
And apparently that current can travel within a few blocks
Mhm.
underground.
Mm.
So anyway, it
Mm.
was something I had never heard of before, but it was
yeah, I've not
pretty
dealt with that.
frightening.
Mm. Mm.
Add it to the list, things to be worried about.
Do
So-
most of your fires, are they in multiple unit buildings or single-family
I'm
buildings?
sorry, what was the
Are
question?
most of the fires you guys go to in multiple family housing arrangements or in single-family houses?
All over the map.
Uh-huh.
So if it is, if it's multifamily and it's newer construction, then they all have sprinklers. If it's King County Public Housing, they all have sprinklers. So it's things where, when we get there, often it's put out, and we have to, instead we go around with a squeegee, and we have our backpacks that look like Ghostbusters that suck the water. So that would be more of what we end up doing when it's the multifamily newer. They do their job, so that's fabulous. But other than that, it's all over the map. So it just depends. Yeah. Variety. Yes.
Just another quick one. Just from a technology point of view, with technology bursting ahead in every dimension, it seems like, we've been putting out fires for probably hundreds of years with water. You guys got anything new?
No, I mean, we utilize our foam system.
Ah,
So basically, we have, our engines carry 500 gallons of water. And then we have 2 different types of foam system. One that is pre-plumbed, into several different lines. So coming off the back, that's usually where we pull from. So if you're in the tailboard spot, which is in the back seat, it's kind of the coolest spot, because at the fire, the driver has to stay with the rig and make sure everything's working and he gets water, she gets water, because I do that too, but goes everywhere to all the right places, all the right hose lines. If you're in the tailboard spot, you go to the back, you usually pull off the 1 3/4 line that's in the back, and that is pre-plumbed for foam. So we're pretty much gonna use foam in any situation, as long as it's not gonna be an environmental hazard. If it is, then we have to also start thinking about, okay, there's drains over here, what can we do to dike those up? So, that being said, it creates a nice blanket. If we're able to not disrupt the blanket, to try to take out the oxygen factor for the fire, so it works pretty fabulous.
And it's not as damaging to everything as water?
Right, so even though I say environmental, they're actually, the product we have is incredibly environmentally safe, but that being said, we still don't wanna throw a bunch of extra stuff down the drain. So, no, but it is, we actually bought this type of foam for that reason, to make sure it was environmentally safe.
So you scrape it off your walls or something after the fire's done?
Nope, it's actually, and it still dissipates, so
Really?
it's just bubbles,
Oh.
basically, the whole system in it, it does dissipate, so. It's pretty
Just thought I'd
fabulous.
ask, I'm impressed.
And something we purchased with your tax-paying money,
Mhm.
we purchased an ATV, so, and we purchased it last year. But we used to use, a Gator, which is an ATV, that we shared with the city, with the Parks and Rec. Well, it was the oldest thing ever, as far as trying to steer it. You turn it, the steering wheel, and it keep going straight. So it wasn't quite effective anymore, so we bought an ATV that actually has a 70-gallon tank, a water tank, that also has foam capacity. And so what we utilize that for, and it also has the capability of carrying a patient. So Richmond Beach, Saltwater Park, we often have to go down there for beach fires. If it's teenager beach fires, we typically will shine a light on them and have them, give them buckets and have them go to the water and put it out themselves. But there is those times where no one's there, and so we have to help out in that situation. But, so there's that, as well as, if we have someone that fell and broke an ankle that can't walk, we can travel way down the beach and do that with this, so it's pretty fabulous. It also helps us at Hamlin Park, Paramount Park, places that have these long trails that, again, access is gonna be more limited, but we can, instead of hiking in and getting there, we have, like I said, a 70-gallon tank, which actually, again, does a lot more than you would think. So, that was one of our new toys. We also used it for the Monster Mash Dash up here, because it fits on the interurban trail, which is really nice too, because we often have to go on aid calls down interurban trail, so it just depends what we can do with it. So, someone else had a question? Yes, Gretchen?
What about the trains with the gas, I guess it's gas.
There's the coal, and there's a lot of different products that go up and down the train.
I'm thinking of the explosive ones out of North Dakota.
Oh,
Yeah,
gotcha.
oil, yeah.
Right, so, we were actually just talking about that in training of, the ones that derailed down in Oregon last year, so we discussed that, issue. That it's not really, they're working on that in the sense of calling it non-flammable, and obviously it is, as far as what kind of tankers they can put them in. Because each tanker is different, and having a relief valve and having all these different things, if it's classified differently, so that's a whole nother ballgame. But we do training with the railroad, and so we got to go down there one day, and we do it several times, but one day we went down and got in and out of the rigs and looked at empty ones that they use for training, so we can see how things work. So if there was an overturned train, we would already know in our head how the best way to approach, where the safety mechanisms are, and what type of things we can do to assist the situation. So it's really nice. We work really well with other departments, other agencies, making sure we have that training across the board, because it's the training for the very, very rare situations that's the most important. So we make sure and do that. Any other questions? Yes?
So, you talked about aid calls. So, how exactly does that work? If someone calls 911, is it the fire department that comes?
So when you call 911, and it depends
I'm having a
what you
medical
say.
emergency.
Right, they will ask you, is this fire or police? So they'll ask, because it is right now, so our dispatch center for Shoreline is actually in Bellevue, and so they handle police and they handle fire. So when you call from a landline, how many of you still have home phones? Okay.
It's to mobile.
So the reason why, I say that is because when you have a cell phone, it has fabulous GPS systems, but you have to think about still getting to a tower. So say if you're in Richmond Beach, we've gone on many calls where people have called from there and it bounces across the water. So if that's the case and you're trying to get to a Bellevue dispatch center, you can call, you can even tell them your address. It still means they have to try to connect you to the right dispatch center. So often, if you call, they'll say, you know, what's your emergency, or say fire, and they'll say, what city are you calling from? And then they'll try to connect you. But it'll go from there, usually to highway patrol, then to Bellevue. So it's kind of a process. If you call from your home phone, right away, that address, in comparison, right away is gonna post up on their computer screen. And that kind of takes away the stress of you calling 911 of trying to remember where you're at. You know, if it's your home, you're probably pretty good. Not necessarily, depends what's happening. But if you're calling from someone else's home, then it takes away one factor of the 911 call. So it's very helpful. Especially when you think about if CPR is not started in a 10-minute window, survivability is 0. So we believe in miracle cases, but 0 is a pretty strong number. I don't want to spend all my time on the phone trying to get to the right dispatch center. When you just call, you can put it on your home phone on speaker, say I'm doing CPR, and you don't have to say another word, and they already press the button to send us. So,
Okay.
yes.
But walk me through this. So say, somebody calls, say there's something that happens like out in the street, and it's a stranger. I see something happening. I don't know if this person has any health insurance or anything, but they need help.
Yes,
And
health
I
insurance
call.
does not, right. So, when you call 911, first think about your safety. Don't approach them if you don't feel safe. For us, it's what we do, but at the same time, we always tell bystanders, make sure that your safety is first and foremost. So, being on Aurora, we have some interesting cases sometimes. That being said, often some of those people that we go to for sleeping on Aurora are heroin users. So if they're laying down and you go to roll them or to check them, likelihood is they're gonna have needles on them. So think about those things for your safety. I'm not saying don't help them, but it may be calling and standing near them and seeing if they're okay and letting the dispatcher know. They don't look like they're moving, I don't feel safe approaching. That's valid. So if you were to call 911 and you're with someone and they don't have health insurance, it doesn't matter. It doesn't cost anything for us to come out. So no matter.
You're not gonna be sending them a bill.
If we just come out, no bill. So if we transport, there is a bill, but it goes to their insurance. If they don't have insurance, we're not gonna send them to debt collectors, so.
Okay, that's what I wondered.
Right. So our bill for transport is usually about half the price of AMR or a private ambulance company. So we try, we're not trying to go and make a ton of money, but it allows us to have another aid car 24 hours a day. So we did have an aid car that we had for 12 hours. And then by making these changes, we have a dedicated aid car that's 24. So, and that's something to tell people. If you have someone that's concerned, they don't have insurance, and they need our care, you can comfort them knowing that, telling them this is not something that's gonna cost, at least have them come out and check you out. And then once we get there, we can try to encourage them. And if they're really sick, then the medic unit would take them, and that's no charge. That's paid for by King County Medic One. So.
Would take them to the hospital.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I wondered about that, because now things are really up in the air about what's gonna
Right.
happen with health insurance and
Right.
stuff.
Nope, it doesn't cost anything to call 911.
Just out of curiosity, do you get many calls in the area and due to our friendly methadone treatment center place here? Not that I really want to know the answer.
No, we get some calls, it varies.
I don't think I've ever seen any medics there, and I go by every day 2, 3, 4 times.
I've been there quite a bit.
You have?
But
I guess
then
it's
again,
not
that's-
when I'm going by.
Right, but if you think about it, they start dosing early in the morning, and usually the last dose is about 11:30 in the afternoon, or mid-morning, late morning.
Yeah.
So afternoon-wise, you shouldn't see us
I
there.
sure hear interesting conversations on the bus.
I'm sure.
I used
People
to
come
know
from all
which
over the place.
woman's prison who had the best vending machines, which vending machines took debit cards,
Oh, yeah.
if I'd ever want to know.
No, and people do come from Renton up to ours and all over the place, so we'll get a bigger variety of people in the morning time, so. Yes,
We noticed, more adult family homes in our neighborhood.
yes,
And.
Shoreline has about 200.
Yeah, I assume that they're all
Wells per capita.
inspected by you and they've got their fire safety taken care of.
So, they don't have to follow any medical, they're working on, and I'm getting ready to go talk to an adult family home organization, that oversees a lot in Shoreline. So we're gonna work on this, but I do know, they do have to get permits, but it's really, they don't have to follow the same medical training. Often they don't have any medical training, so it's an interesting case.
Yeah, and, like, what the emergency, like that.
Right, and so one of our medics that just retired in the past, one of his things was to go out to the adult family homes and try to educate them. And so that's something I'm gonna start working on again. I go to, sometimes the nursing homes or independent living locations and make sure that they know how it's gonna best help us interact with them. So whether it's them calling for a medical emergency or whether we're going there for an automatic fire alarm. So whether it's the medical side or the fire side. So making sure that they know what is gonna be, I'm trying to be correct here, but to make sure that they're following what they need to be doing to make it safe for everyone.
Okay, so you're working on it.
Correct,
Yeah.
yes.
So as far as you know, they don't really have a emergency plan on hand that everybody who works there knows about?
It depends. I mean, I know a lot of them do. So we go
Okay.
to a lot of them.
Do you
And
have an exit plan?
a lot, exactly. They
Yeah.
have exit plans and they'll have, different information. Often they're gonna have, as far as the medical side, have their code status. Often, sometimes they'll have them on the door of the individual. Some, if not, they have them in their notebook, so they have a lot of information there. As far as some of the others, so I can't speak for them, it's something, like I said, I know that one of my past coworkers, he really worked hard on trying to educate as much as he could. And so, it's a constant going into some of the locations. They are fabulous. No offense, Mom, but I would put my mom there someday, just kidding. But no, it's something where, some are just fabulous, and they truly are in the job for the right reason. But you're gonna have every extreme. You're gonna have those that aren't so great, that I can't tell you a whole lot about the individual, even though they've been with them for months. So, if they have that with the care, sometimes I'm concerned about the safety side also.
Well, the reason I ask is, I'm a Shoreline cert, and back in my neighborhood, all of a sudden I've got 2 adult family homes in my neighborhood.
And that's huge for you.
And that's huge, because it's,
If there's a fire, that's 7 more residents in
Yeah.
that location. So adult family homes can have a maximum of 7 people that they're caring for. So that does change.
How many caregivers, 1 or 2 per 7? No rule?
No, I know that they're supposed to, so we've had some situations where some of them owned several. And so they were going back and forth and, some that were next door to each other. So there's lots of situations. So I can't really say a definitive on this right now. It has to, like I said, it's something that I'm working on to make sure that we have some good things established, and everyone could surprise me and be doing absolutely perfect, fabulous. So I just know, coming from a firefighter standpoint, not a public educator, that, we've seen every extreme, which is across the board, in other residential homes, not adult family homes. So everyone's human. We just hope that we can have some good guidelines. Yes?
Yeah, so I had a question about fire hydrants and safety, and so apparently there's for new construction of homes, there's a requirement about how close a fire hydrant has to be. So my concern is, I live in an older neighborhood built in the early 1960s, and so we were looking to have an addition added on, like a separate garage.
Mhm.
And, we were told when applying for the permit that since the fire hydrant was, I don't know, how many feet away, 500 feet away?
Oh, it's way far away. I
It's
mean,
way far away,
it's
we're
like
not at
more
the
than
end of
1,000
our,
feet away.
okay.
Mine's further.
Okay, that we would have to, in our design, incorporate inside sprinklers,
Right.
not only in the garage, but in the house as well. And the house is like from 1960. So, that being said, obviously there's no requirement for our house, being an older house, and one fire hydrant is on
Right.
Meridian Avenue North. But how can we get a fire hydrant added? What has to happen?
So, and like, I don't know if you were in here before when we were talking about it. So hydrants are not owned by the city of Shoreline. So, you have North City Water
Mhm.
that owns everything to the east. And then you have Seattle Public Utilities that owns all the hydrants on this side.
The North City and City of Seattle.
Yeah, Meridian Park is
East
totally
of the freeway,
city of
or east of
Seattle.
the freeway?
Yeah, I'm not sure the exact line, but it's, yeah, so they are completely their hydrants.
Mhm.
We used to service them,
Mhm.
but they wanted, there was kind of a question on that, so,
Mhm.
they're doing all that. We might start servicing them again, but we don't have any control over locations, you know, all of those things that, as far as making a request, you know,
Hmm.
for new. We have the capability of being able to lay, you know, 1,000 feet. We have our 5-inch that has 1,000 feet in the back of our engines. So we have the capability of covering, and then we can connect to another engine if we need more. So like when we had a big fire in the Highlands
Yeah.
last year.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
And laying that all the way, I mean, that was way up the
Yeah.
driveway, and it was way down another way. We had one pumping to another one. So we have the capability to do it.
But time
But-
lost, I think it's like time lost to do that too.
We're pretty fast though.
Really?
Yep, because like I was saying, we'll have the first one pull up to the fire, and we have 500 gallons. We could do a lot with 500 gallons. We have a plan where we practice best practices. The
Mhm.
second-in engine's gonna take the hydrant, and they're either going to drive to connect, depends where the hydrant's at, they can drive to connect the line that we leave out. So if we're going up a driveway,
Mhm.
and we know that they're gonna connect and it's gonna be a ways, we'll have the tailboard get off, and they will pull the hose off the back, and they'll kneel on it, and the engine will keep going. That way, it's already ready for the next, engine that drives up. So it's a pretty good process.
Yeah. Okay.
It's pretty,
How
it's
much
pretty
does a
slick.
hydrant cost?
No idea.
But we have
Because
to
one of
go.
the things that they've offered is, you know, we could just buy one.
Yeah.
No, really, I mean, I
Just
researched
Seattle?
this.
Wow.
They're
Seattle?
very
I
expensive.
researched this, I called, because when I talked with Marty about this,
Mhm.
we're next door neighbors.
Yeah.
And I talked with Marty about this, and I called the fire department, and they
Mhm.
said, well, you know, you could just buy one on your own,
Hmm.
get together with your neighbors, but I never, you know,
Then
heard
connect
what
to the
a.
main line. Hmm.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't call us on this, just for the sake of knowing, you know, that we don't control the hydrants. So unless that changes, I would definitely contact Seattle City Public Utilities, or I would connect with, North City.
Okay.
For,
And that.
Well, I
for
felt a little bit
Meridian
more
Park, it's
reassured.
totally city of Seattle. We don't reach as far, cause
Okay.
North City ends about 5th northeast, so we don't go that far.
Okay. Yes.
What would you say is the most common cause of house fire, and are lint fires in dryers as bad as I hear?
So kitchen fires are still our big one.
The big one.
That's our most common. As far as lint fires, you know, we do get dryer fires. Often it's gonna be, you know, overloaded, as well. I mean, you still need to have them cleaned, of course, so that you do have the ventilation, so we don't have that blocking off of the heat, so we're nowhere for it to go. But as far as our percentage, I'm not sure a percentage, but I do know, you know, that our kitchens are still our big one. We have electrical fires too, you know, some people still have we still see an old knob and tube every once in a while.
Hmm.
Aren't candles pretty high up there?
Candles can be a doozy as well. So, something we don't have here in Shoreline anymore is, a mobile home park. Those were also a big risk with candles, because they just go so quickly. It's gonna be pretty much a complete loss if you have a mobile home fire.
Hmm.
It's gonna go really quick. But as far as candles, you know, we had an unfortunate situation at a storage unit this last year. And she didn't have a place to live. She was living in her van, and then her van wouldn't start. And so she ended up spending the night there, and she put on an emergency candle for light and fell asleep. So I recommend never using candles, as much as I used to think they were the coolest and look so neat, and yeah, they're definitely, it's not worth it.
Fire safety with children.
So, I don't know if you've seen that we have a really cool children's safety center down Richmond Beach. It's amazing, there's not one like it anywhere near here. Even when I go down to Oregon and talk to them down there, when I go, up over to the east side, different places, they don't have this. So we're really, really, really blessed to have it, because we have groups come in all week long. I had 32 kids today, I had 38 yesterday, of different groups that come. So I'm able to educate the children, and I'm able to educate the parents that come, or the teachers that come. And so what we typically do is I'll have them come down there, and we bought a bunch of fire gear. Someone did a fundraiser for us. So with that money, we bought a bunch of kids' fire gear from Costco right before Halloween, very cost effective. And so they try on the gear. They get to climb on our old fire engine that's down there that takes Santa around at Christmas and also does the parades and funerals. And so they get to climb on there. Our old fire pole from one of our stations is there that we cut and put down there. One of our captains, his wife did the Fifth Avenue Theater sets, so she did a really cool mural, and there's just fun stuff for the kids. So we let them have fun and do that, and then afterwards, towards the end of their visit, we do a video. It's a safety video that I thought was the corniest thing ever when I saw it, but the kids are so focused. They are just glued to it, and afterwards they can repeat just about every line. It's amazing. And so, corny works out great. And so they think about these things, and I've had kids that come back year after year with different groups, and they can tell me, and their parents will say, oh my gosh, we have practiced doing a fire drill like 10 times. So I'm able to get them the information of not the stop, drop, and roll. So we taught that forever, which is fabulous if you're on fire. The likelihood of them actually being on fire and being the cause is more minimal in comparison to the smoke getting them. So it's teaching them to get under smoke. It's teaching them to sleep with their door closed, feeling the back of the door with their hand, checking a knob. If there's no heat, just look out slowly, and they kind of say like a knight behind a shield, looking around. And then we talk about, a second way out if not. So we go through all these different scenarios, and then I make sure I always put all my gear on afterwards. I get my mask on, I do the whole shebang, because it can look a little scary to kids. And so I make sure that they understand first, I'm a mom, I just happen to have a really cool job, and so I get to wear the safety gear. So I'll crawl on the ground and try to get them to interact and respond with me. So that way, if I said I was coming into your second way out, you're by the window, and I'm saying, where are you? Are they gonna whisper? So I get them to make sure they yell. So getting the idea of how it could be and what I would look like coming in, so they're not running away. So it's a pretty fabulous thing. I also get to go to the schools. I try to make it out to any schools that contact me. I'll go out and I bring the fire engine, and again, I get in my gear, and we talk about a lot of different fire safety issues. And so that way, the more I can target the different ages, hopefully they're retaining these things. I also did a ride along a day. I followed around a public educator down in Gig Harbor. She's fabulous. She wrote up a curriculum that got approved by the school district from age kindergarten up to 6th grade. And then she also goes to the cooking classes at the high school. So it's something I would like to start working towards that. So I'm looking at curriculum to find a way to get our kids safe, to think about the what ifs, and not just to see a fire and just think, oh my goodness, and see us in our gear. We're really cool when things aren't on fire. When it's an emergency, things change. So to make sure that they're educated, and that we can try to show them the process a little bit. And again, state that, I'm just a mom. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm trying to make sense of this, that's really great. But I'm trying to make sense of this question that my neighbor, and we're grappling with here. So on the one hand, you're saying it's no problem, you've got plenty of line, or plenty of hose
Right.
that you can put out the fire. But on the other hand, the city is telling our neighbor here that they have to put in a very expensive sprinkler system.
Right.
So, to me, that makes no sense.
So
So
there-
who makes the laws about this? Because they say for new construction,
Mhm.
these developers have to put in these fire hydrants within 500 feet of
Right.
new construction.
Right.
But the city of Seattle is not bound to put in fire hydrants within 500 feet of our house.
Right, so I know they're trying to play catch-up, you know, anytime there's new construction, they're gonna require those things. Often they're gonna require, if it's over a certain square footage, they're gonna require sprinklers, they're gonna require sidewalks. So there's a lot of different things where they're trying to make those improvements.
So all new construction is required to have sprinklers?
No, it depends on square footage. So if they're over a certain amount of square footage,
You know what that is?
it's a big house. It's a big house, it's 2,500 or higher.
2,500?
It might be higher than 2,500 actually, so.
Okay. Who makes the laws about this in our city?
I'm not sure in
Who
our,
writes the code?
I'm not sure in our city, because we're a county fire department, so I know that we follow, there's different guidelines that we have to follow. We have a national governing, body that also sets standards that we can enforce. But I'm not sure as far as the grandfathering in, that's why I know with the new construction, that changes, what we can enforce law-wise.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to figure out, like, who can we go to appeal about this? Because it just seems like it's just really, like, disjointed and it doesn't make sense.
Well, if you'd like, you can call me or you can give me your phone number and I can find out. I can touch
Okay.
base with our fire marshal and find out what their connection is.
Okay.
Who actually makes the decisions, within, if it has a city, if it has Seattle Public Utilities, or if it's a larger governing body as far as the locations where they have to be, if they've always been this way, what requires them to make a change.
Okay, great, because our whole cul-de-sac and everything is like way far away from the closest hydrant is down, across from Meridian Park Elementary.
Okay,
And we have 171st and 172nd is
Mhm.
this U.
right, I know where you are. I'm not stalking you.
Hmm.
No,
Yeah.
but with that, so knowing, like I said, yes, we have the capability. Yes, if we have them closer, of course it's gonna be more fabulous for us. But knowing that we do have our 500 gallons,
Yeah,
that's a
so
big,
that's
big
great,
deal.
but then if that's really the case, then why do they have to put in the expensive thing? That's the thing she
Right.
knows.
Yeah, I know, and that's fine, those are valid, good questions.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I know that they're gonna want more, but if they
Mhm.
can have the contractor do it, by building new construction, obviously saves them the money.
Right.
So, I'm not sure as far as grandfathering,
Yeah.
so,
All right, well, I would love to get more
definitely.
contact with them. Thank you.
Okay, of course, yes.
Back to your children's safety center.
Yes.
Do you have regular hours, or do you have to?
That's a good question, so we don't, so because this job is so vast as far as different avenues, I try to accommodate every group that calls. So we have preschools, daycares, kindergartens, parents groups, all different things. So an example, Martin Luther King Day. I set that day as someone asked for a Monday. So I really didn't look at the calendar per se and saw that it was Martin Luther King Day. I said, oh, that's a great day. So I had 100 people in a 2-hour time frame. It's pretty small down there, but it was awesome and it went really well and it was fabulous. So I try to set days, usually that, like Fridays, a lot more of the daycares or preschools, sometimes they're Monday through Thursday. So I try to set a time that's open. And again, setting the different times for different groups. So some weeks I'll have 3 groups, 4 groups, some weeks I'll have 1. So typically it's an hour time frame, so it's doable to pop down there, have it open for an hour, and come back and be able to do a lot of different other aspects of my job.
But we would have to contact you to set up.
Correct, yes. Yep, so it's not just open, it's all by appointment. Yes,
Is this only Shoreline schools? Like my son is a
Good
teacher in
question.
Highline.
right. So it's not only Shoreline schools. If we have people coming from out of the district, all we do is say, we request donations. Because we don't want to take away from Shoreline taxpayers by
Mhm.
opening it up to everyone, because then that takes my time away. So when they make donations, we put it directly back into there. So that's what helps us buy, if we needed more gear. Luckily, the Streetzeria Pizza Place had their fundraiser that got us a great amount of money, but it allows us to buy more fire. We have, if you've never been down there, it has the most ridiculous amount of fire engines and fire trucks, that all the little ones for kids to play with. So, lots of kids, they break. So we try to replace those. I'm kind of cheap. I go to Goodwill and I go to Value Village whenever, and just kind of look for those and grab them whenever I see them. But so that's where we spend our money, is trying to put it back into there. Maybe buying some chairs for some of the older people that come, because often they have to sit on the tailboard. It's not always the most comfortable. So things like that. So if they are from out of the area, we welcome them as long as it fits in our schedule and we're not taking away from shoreline schools. And then
I think it's fascinating. She teaches fourth grade. I think they really enjoy that.
it's fabulous. We usually, when it gets, depends if that's too old, they may start getting a little too cool. You never know. But it's fun. It's fun to get the different age groups in. Yes?
You had mentioned also gearing up and rolling a
Mhm.
truck somewhere. What's the typical size you would need to do that? Like a elementary school class, if they, would
Right,
that
so
be big
usually
enough to
they'll
do, or-
get, so like I went to Highland Park Terrace, and they had, all 3 kindergarten classes. So they came outside, sat on the hillside, I gave them the whole safety talk, I got in my gear, and then I took them around the engine and explained everything, and opened compartments. They got to go through and sit in, and so we try to do it for, larger groups, because obviously it's more beneficial. And when I bring the engine out, it is a backup engine, so we never take a first out engine out of service. It would, if I ever had a crew do it, that's another good reason having a firefighter in this position, because I can take a backup engine and not bug the crews from calls, from drills, from other things. So it would never take away from an emergency. So it just varies, if you had a group you were thinking.
I was thinking about my daughter's first grade class, but at Highland Terrace, it sounds like you were just there.
Well, I was there for kindergarten last year.
Oh, last
So,
year,
mhm.
okay.
Yep, so it's
Interesting.
it's
Okay.
doable. I went to Echo Lake Elementary, just a while ago as well. And that was 3 classes of second graders, and it's always a hit. And then I buy stickers, little badge stickers, and those are always a hit, so give them something and it's all great.
You're like the perfect person to do this.
That's what Melanie kept telling me. She kept saying, "You're gonna do this." I said, "No, I'm good." And I'm like, "You're not retired for like 10 years, right?" She goes, "Oh no, next year." What? So, no, I love it. I mean, it allows me to reach out to a lot of different members of our community. I like going, like I went down to Aegis, and I got to go talk to their staff and say, "Okay, flu season's here. What are we gonna do?" Because we go on so many calls, and the flu is so bad this year, but we go on so many calls, and I was like, gosh, your vital signs are okay, you're actually doing okay to stay here at a facility, rather than go to the emergency room, where you're gonna come in contact with so many different germs. So trying to decipher, and don't be afraid to call 911, but just think about your individual here. So we talked about that. We talked about, a lot of different medical emergencies. Why would someone be confused? The need for stroke, the need to call right away if we think it's a stroke. Not, oh, they were acting a little odd this morning where they weren't responding. Okay, you have a 4-hour window if someone has a stroke for us to get them to the hospital and try to reverse the symptoms that they're having. So, a lot of different things, getting to do that, like I said, and getting to go to the schools. I went to a retired federal employees meeting over at North City Water one day. I go to Krista, all over the place. So and the senior center, pretty fabulous. They have that fall prevention exercise class, and they had even a waiting list this time, so they had like 18 people, and that's something that we pay for from a grant from King County. So we have the capability of really hopefully reaching a lot of our residents in a lot of different ways. But the big thing is for you to know where your tax money's going, what you're supporting, and what we can help you with. And if there's things that, you have questions, awesome. It's not always gonna be, oh, everything's great with the fire department. There's questions that we need to, figure out. So you can have that detached garage. Is that something we can help with? Or is it something, we have to look further to find out, where the changes are made? So.
Do you find there's a lot less fires caused by smokers? Now that people don't smoke nearly as much?
I'm trying to think when the last, I can't remember the last fire with smoking.
Hmm.
That's a good question.
Amazing.
So, I do know early on in my career, we definitely had a lot more smoking in bed.
Hmm.
People falling asleep with it.
Just as an aside thing, we found some cute little candles that for all the world, 5 feet away, look like real candles, but they've got a little tiny bulb in there that just flickers slightly,
Right.
and they have a little switch in the bottom.
Yes, battery operated or
And it
fabulous.
programs itself to come on, you know,
Yeah.
about when the dusk gets, and it's great, because
Oh,
I have at least, I'm sure you're concerned about any open flame.
Right.
I mean, no thanks.
Right. Pets and open flames, jumping, kids.
Yes.
All the above.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, this is just kind of a comment question, but like I've taken the CPR and the first aid classes, multiple times. And yet I just have this fear that like, if the time came, that I would blank out.
So,
When it's time.
with the CPR, I'm so happy that American Heart Association and Red Cross, everyone, they've made it simple across the board. In the past, you had to remember, oh gosh, how old are they? Is it 15 compressions, 2 ventilations? Is it, and I learned way back when it was 5 to 1. So it's now, we pretty much teach continuous compressions, because they found that 30 compressions, 2 ventilations, and continuous compressions, the numbers are really, really close. So by just pushing on someone's chest, it's kind of taken out that factor. But if you're in this situation and you get overwhelmed and you have a brain freeze, dispatchers are trained to completely walk you through it. They are amazing. Unfortunately, I mean, I think they have one of the hardest jobs, because you call them with your emergency, they walk you through how to do it, we show up and you hang up and they never know how things went. So that's kind of a tough job, but they're trained to do it well. So I had a situation, so before I was a firefighter, I was a strength coach at UW, and one of my athletes, a women's basketball player, went into cardiac arrest, and her teammates didn't know how to do CPR. They'd never taken a class, which floors me. They called 911, and the dispatchers completely walked them through. They did CPR until the medics got there. Turned out she had an electrical activity issue, had to get defibrillated, got shocked, and then she has a permanent implanted defibrillator. But they're trained to, so if your brain is not working because this is someone you know and oh my goodness, super overwhelming, don't fear. They're
So just call
great.
911.
Just call 911, definitely. First aid issues too, same thing.
And they think about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the biggest thing,
Anyway, even if you were
Yeah.
doing it.
the biggest
yeah.
thing is just getting started. Is not panicking, not thinking too much. That's why by making it continuous compressions, it kind of took out the whole, oh my gosh, are they breathing? Do they have a pulse? It's
Yeah.
really, someone goes down, you shake them, and it's not little, you shake them and check, and you can see if they look like they have signs of life. If you see their chest rising, any rise and fall, 10 seconds max, then just start pushing on their chest. So I'm really happy that I think it's not gonna be changed, I think they found a system that works. And, the big thing is you're trying to act as their heart. So if you're not pushing on their chest, that's time that the blood is not getting pumped up to the brain. So,
And just sing the song, Staying Alive.
yes, Staying Alive by the Bee Gees, Another One Bites the Dust by Queen. Don't sing either one really out loud, but in your head is okay. So, yeah, one of my coworkers said that every cardiac arrest, she still sings in her head, Staying Alive. It keeps you on pace, so it's good.
That's what we learned.
Yes, it works.
Hmm.
Any other questions?
How many fires do you probably have in Shoreline on average? Is it hard to say?
It's hard to say.
Hmm.
We will go and have, 5 in 1 month, and then we'll have none for a month, or so. So it completely varies.
Hmm.
There's no rhyme or reason with our fires.
But more in the winter.
More in the winter as far as that have to do with the chimneys, that have to do with, combustibles too close. So things like that. We have electrical fires still, randomly, all the time. Cooking fires all the time.
I don't hear many car fires lately.
No, we do have car
Which is a
fires
good
too.
thing.
We had a pretty significant one on I-5,
Just
2 months
last week.
ago. Yeah, we had another one last week, but a really significant one either. But no, and with our car fires, usually we get there and
People
it's
get out.
smoking. It's not really, not really fully involved. We do have those also, but it's often, you know, we get calls for a vehicle fire and we get there and it's overheated or something else, so that's a good thing. Mother has a question, yes?
I was just gonna ask about vehicle accidents.
Oh, vehicle accidents. So MVAs, motor vehicle accidents, we go on a lot of those, obviously with the slick conditions, you know. When it hasn't rained in a while and it rains, of course, the oil on the roads, different things. But usually it's people, you know, it's gonna be distracted driving, that's a big one. The texting, that's another program we're working with the high school. It used to always be the drunk driving drills that we do, we're really trying to get them to be more aware of numbers for the distracted driving, because that's a huge one. So, it depends, every motor vehicle accident we go on, you're not gonna see just an 8-car usually, you're gonna see an engine in an 8-car. The reason why, there's potential for fire, so we may or may not pull a line for that, even though it's just a car accident, it depends, you know, where it was hit. But also the engine, like if it's on the freeway, you're gonna have the engine and the truck every time, and that's to protect us, that's the scariest call for us to have is on the freeway. Because you get people plowing through, and so the truck will create a barrier to protect the scene, ourselves, as well as those that are involved in the accident. And so then usually you're gonna have the 8-car that'll pull past if they need to take them to the hospital. So, it just depends, you know, where it's at, what it is. If it's like a car versus pedestrian, we're gonna have a medic unit that's gonna come automatically. So it really depends what the person tells the dispatcher determines who comes. Cardiac arrest, you're gonna get 8 or 9 of us. So if you ever see a lot of rigs in front of a residence and it's not on fire, usually it's cardiac arrest.
When I was in high school, we were on way back from a vacation, the family got smacked bad by another car. And about a week before then, as an eager beaver junior or so in high school, I had been reading Mechanics Illustrated, of course, and they said if you're in a car crash, the best first thing to do is turn the ignition off.
Right.
Is that still the case?
Yep, so that's another thing we do. When we come upon the scene, we're gonna make sure that car is stable. So that's gonna require us, we'll make sure it's in park, we're gonna put the emergency brake on, you're gonna take the keys out of the ignition, depending upon where it's at, we may also chalk their wheels. If it's on a slope, like off the side of, you know, on the freeway, off the side of an off-ramp, we may also use our chains and go through the axle and chain it and connect it to our engine up at the top, something that's gonna keep it from being a rolling hazard, obviously creating more injuries. So that's kind of our MO is going, put it in park, put the emergency brake on, and take the keys out. Good question.
How do you work that with these keyless ignitions?
We just make sure it's off. You can press the button. So, good question. Thanks, Mom. Just kidding. But no, it's something where, you know, we also have to think about all the airbags. So there's so many airbags in all the cars nowadays. So in the past, we used to often cut the battery wire if we had to, because they can still, and we would cut a spot where it can't reconnect. Because often you can have those airbags that can have a delayed response. Better now, but that is a big, I mean, if we're in there trying to deal with the patient, that's a big knockout to us.
Yeah.
So that's why if you saw us doing that, we try if we can now to try to just disconnect the battery cable. So often that's why we have to still get under the hood, is for our safety and their safety, if the airbags haven't already deployed.
How much training did you have to
Become a firefighter?
Yeah.
A lot.
Sounds like it.
So in the summers in college, I fought forest fires down in California and Oregon and Idaho and a few places, but out of California. So I got some training that way first, which helped build my resume to get this job. I was an EMT in California when I was a volunteer also. And then, but when I came up here, I had to go through the course again. It's really, really hard to get hired, incredibly hard. The last 6 years was brutal because no one was hiring. And so in the last few years, it's been crazy how much hiring we've done, but it's because we were so far behind, because people were retiring. We were like, we don't have money, you know, to hire. So we have a pretty big group coming in. The newer group, they have to go through so much more training than we ever did in the sense of classes. So certification. So, you know, a lot of them have their fire science degree. They will have like 4 or 5 different certifications that required, you know, extra classes on top of that. So once you have all those things, then you can present it on your resume and hope to get an interview. So the thing I really love about here, in comparison, to some of the other places I interviewed before, is Shoreline's fabulous of trying to get to know the person in an interview, as opposed to some departments will have a checked off list. Oh, they said this. Okay, there's their check. Where here, I've got to be on a few of the panels, and we ask questions that I just think, gosh, that's fabulous. We could find out more about that person. Will they be a good fit for Shoreline? Because so much of it, we're together 24 hours. And if it's someone that doesn't really get along with people, that's gonna be really hard. So we make sure, that we do the best we can to try to make sure, personality-wise, they're gonna be a good fit for Shoreline, so that we can be more effective. Because you can not like someone and still work with them and do okay, but obviously it works much better when you can have that cohesive unit for 24 hours. Yes?
Can you share some of the things they go through at the academy once they're hired?
So we have an academy going on right now. We have 4 Shoreline, they will be Shoreline employees. They are currently, as long as they make it through, in this academy. And it's actually run through many agencies, and they rotate. So they were here last week, for part of last week. And, excuse me, they're gonna go through extensive, it's 16 weeks of an academy, and then they go through another few weeks of just EMT. Even though they have their EMT certification already, we wanna make sure they know the Shoreline way. So we're kind of proud, because anywhere you go, with Medic One, they rely on Shoreline for a lot of things. So we're really, really big on training. We have an amazing, our chief of EMS is top, he's amazing. So we always wanna make sure that we're up there, so we're doing extra after, to make sure before we just let them out on our residents, that they really know what's expected of them, and what level of care we like to give. So that requires, ladder drills, hose drills, search and rescue. We'll do some trench drills, some confined space, some rope rappel off the tower. Lots of PT, which is physical training. So, they're gonna start their day running, burpees, lots of fun stuff. Lots of different things, though, to try to make sure that they're prepared for the job. And we actually have the number 1 guy in the class. We have the other 3 are pretty darn close too. So I really think that Shoreline's done a fabulous job, and I'm not just saying that because I'm in the public position. I said it before when I was not in the public quite as much. And I just think that, we do a really good job of getting really good employees that are in it for the right reasons. So that's really nice.
Was I out of the room when you said how many fire stations we have in?
Oh, no, so good question. We have 3 fire stations that are active, that we actually are manned.
Personally.
I know, I just thought about that. I'm like, we've always called it manned.
That's okay.
But it makes me laugh, because my 9-year-old is politically correct. Even when it comes to the mannequins, I used to call them dummies, and she's like, Mom, that's not very nice. Really? Okay, so they're mannequins. They're peoplekins. Anyways, okay, diarrhea. So we do have 3 stations that we operate out of. Then we have our headquarters station, that is strictly our administration, and then we do all of our training here. And then we have the Children's Fire Safety Center down in Richmond Beach. So with those 3 stations, we have the one you see from the freeway off 155, and that's where our truck is located. So we have a truck, which is 3 people. They jump between the engine and the truck, depending upon what the call is. And then we have an aid car there also. That's a 24-hour aid car.
There's one on 185th.
Yep, and then you have the one on 185th, and that's station 64. And that one has, basically, if you had a cardiac arrest near there, that whole entire station would go. So it has an engine, which is 3 people, an aid car, which is 2, medic unit, which is 2, and a battalion chief. So a lot out of that station. But that covers, all the way down the hill. We also service Woodway. And then we also head north, and it kind of coincides with Station 63. Station 63 is the one over on North City. But just know at any given time, if this whole station is on a call, you're gonna have the next closest that's gonna come. So if we have a fire like we did in Richmond Beach, all those departments that came, there's more departments that are coming to man our stations. So we could have someone from Kirkland and they, dispatch tells them, they get the code, they go into our station, they have all of our maps, they also have GPS systems in their rigs, and so they're able to go handle our calls. So it doesn't mean because there's some big incident that the rest of the district isn't covered. Yes?
Okay, when it talked about a 2-alarm fire or a 3-alarm,
Mhm.
that doesn't mean number of fire stations. What does that mean?
So we have a plan with our dispatch center, depending upon what the call is. So that, if we say, it's a second alarm, we already have a designated list of what that entails. We need maybe 2 more engines, we need another, an aid car, a medic unit, and another battalion chief. So it all depends on what is already rewritten with our dispatch run card.
So alarms doesn't mean how many of fire stations.
No,
Okay.
it means that's
Oh.
is this all on video? Are you videoing it all?
Mhm.
Dang it, okay. That's an oh dang fire. If they have to add more, it doesn't mean that it's adding more stations, it just means, according to that run card, it's going to be, okay, you're asking for a second alarm, that means it's gonna be this, and this. So, it just, like the Linwood fire that we recently had, when you're talking a 3-alarm, whatever it is already predetermined at the dispatch center, when they ask for that, how many more rigs they're getting, that's all it is.
So each rig is not an alarm. An
No.
alarm is the number of equipment that's gonna be
Correct.
needed.
So
Okay.
if they say I need a second alarm, then the dispatcher says, okay, the second alarm says, this is what we need to send. And so then they send that out. And it doesn't mean it's all from one department, they can get engines from all different places.
Okay. Cause I keep reading 2-alarm,
Right.
3-alarm, but then it talks about all these neighbors who are coming in, and I'm
Right.
thinking, that's a 10-alarm.
I know, we get quite a few. So the thing is you have to think about also is we go in with a pack on, our pack lasts a certain amount of time.
Mhm.
So we need to make sure, depending upon how hard that working fire is, how quick we go through those bottles. So we'll need a second crew rotating in and to constantly go through, and we call it a rehab, where it depends, how hard they worked, how quick they went through, if they need to sit, recover, get another bottle.
Excuse
I
me, I
wanted
have
to
to run and go pick up the kids.
Yes.
Can I take a picture of those,
Oh,
masks?
sure,
Because
definitely.
my
Kids
girls
love
are really
this.
interested.
I know, this is always a selling point when they go, oh, you really can rescue red pets?
Yeah.
Yes,
I
we're
wanted to
right
say,
here. Yes.
I wanted to say a couple quick things just
Yes.
from a kid's perspective. I
Yes.
have a 7-year-old daughter.
Uh-huh.
And so I just wanna mention that Christmas morning when you drive through the neighborhood with
Yeah.
Santa on the back of the truck, huge hit.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So,
I have the coolest,
so,
really the coolest
thank you
coworkers.
so
You're
much
welcome.
for that. I hope you never stop doing that.
We've been doing it for,
Except for you wake the parents up.
yes, I know, the parents, yes. We have very loud music, if you haven't seen it, no,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's
And
great.
the tractor
They
noise.
they volunteer, and they have families. And I told them, I'm sorry, as a mom, I'm never going to do that until they're out of the house. But they do that and they love it, they absolutely
Yeah.
love it, so I'm glad that you enjoyed it.
The other thing is the annual open house.
Mhm.
Do you still,
We do.
okay.
Yep,
And
so
is
that,
it coming up?
typically that's held, we like to hold it in October, because that's Fire Safety Month. We held it before, prior, I think it had more to do with, a voting issue, as far as it was a good timing to,
Oh, I see.
educate the public more on what we do. Because of course, that's something, it's hard to know what we do. You just see us going around and hear sirens, and you pull to the right, and that's it. So if we can show the public a little more of what our day-to-day activities are, that's why we did it earlier.
We went, I don't think it was the last one, but the one before, and you had hot dogs, and you had
Mhm.
activities for
Right.
kids, you did training exercises, and it was really great, so, thanks.
Yep.
Yeah,
I love that aspect. It's great. Again, that's another way just for the public to see. But, it still comes down to the kids. The kids, they love it, and we get them there, and then the parents, when we do the extrication, when we cut open cars so they can see what we may have to do to get to a patient, then it's all about the parents. The parents are just like, when they ask all the questions, But it's something where, we hope we can involve our community as much as possible, but knowing, kids love firefighters when they're young. They grow out of it, often, but a lot of them wanna be one, and so it's neat if we can try to get them involved as much as possible. And get that, like I said, get that safety feature going early, instead of just having to see us at a bad moment,
so it's typically in October?
typically,
Okay.
correct. And the hot dog vendor we used went out of business. He was awesome. So good, the onions, the bell peppers, the stuff. So, but anyway, we're looking for another one. So we'll see.
Great.
Yeah, so, and I will post that. So if you ever, this can kind of, unless you have another question? Okay, so segueing, if you ever have the sirens going around, you're like, what is going on? I post for Facebook, so we have our Facebook page, and I learned how to Twitter, kind of. I'm working on it. And so whenever there's like a major event that's happening right now, I'm gonna post to Twitter. And that's something where, avoid the area, something that needs to be known right now. If it's more of a Facebook post, I do stats of the week. I try to do those on Mondays, as long as I'm here on Mondays. And I try to give information that way as well. I'm also, because I live in Shoreline, I'm also a part of a bazillion groups. So, being a mom, I'm part of the Shoreline Parents, Buy Nothing Shoreline, Gift Everything, let's see, Secret Shoreline, Diane, the Shoreline Area News. So I try to make sure, and Next Door, yeah, so a lot. So I try to make sure, so even when I'm at home, I am still connected. So if ever there's something big and they want me there, they'll call. If it's something where I see that something's going out, I will go onto our CAD, which is basically looking at our dispatch, what it says. And so that way I can find out information and try to alleviate some people's fears. Obviously I can't with HIPAA if it's something personal, but if it's something where I can say, you need to avoid this area because there was a car into a building. So I try to make sure that I alert the different groups when I hear the information. And usually with Secret Shoreline, she's probably my quick avenue. So she checks it right away. So I'll say, I just posted something on Facebook, and she'll take that and then she'll post it out. So that way, hopefully I can help alleviate some of the fears and questions sometimes just by being educated as what's going on in your neighborhood. Even at 2 in the morning. Why is there helicopters overhead? That's a cop issue? I do not know. But on other issues, I try to make sure, like I said, even at 2 in the morning, I try to post if I have that information.
Well, I know time is running really out real quickly. I used to live in Finn Hill area of Shoreline, Kirkland, Kenmore. And that whole Finn Hill is quite a big area, and there's a couple of stations there figuring out how to consolidate them and all that stuff. And I went to a couple of meetings, gosh, 5 years ago now, and they were talking about a 5-minute response time,
Right.
because the flashover sort of thing. You guys have that as a working kind of
Right, so our
parameter?
maximum response is 10 minutes. Typically, it's 5 minutes or less is our goal, and that's what we shoot for. And the good thing is we're always aware, we get our stats back of where we're at. So, why did you hit 8 minutes on this call? If it's over 10, then we're gonna get alerted. So, it's something where we are constantly getting feedback, whether it's for our stats on CPR. Every time we go on a CPR call, we put on a puck, is what we call it, but it's basically we put it on top of the person's chest, and it measures the depth, it measures how much we come at the top, it measures how long it's been since ventilation, and it tells us everything if we don't press the audio off button. But it records everything, and as soon as that cardiac arrest is done, we fax that immediately to the doctor. They analyze that and send us back saying you were at 96% effective on your depth. And so we make sure not just cardiac arrest, but other events that we look at our times, we look at our numbers, and we have people that are always on top of that to make sure that we're in a timely fashion like we're supposed to. You won't see us running. That's something we're big on, is saying it's someone else's emergency, not ours. If we run, that's when mistakes happen. We want to make sure that we're keeping a level head, that we're able to process. So we'll get in our car, we go in our rig, we'll go quickly. It doesn't mean we're running though, but we're going to walk quickly to our rig, get our gear on, whatever it is, get in our rig, listen to the dispatch that says what we're going on, and then we're going to talk about it on the way. So if it's an aid call and they say sick unknown, okay, that happens. So we'll start coming up with different scenarios, and we'll talk about that en route. What potential things we could be coming into to how we can help try to figure out what their sickness is. Same thing with a fire. Okay, we're going to go to our big map before we get in the engine. We're going to say, okay, we have a hydrant right here, and then en route, our lieutenant or captain, whoever it is going to look on our map again and just verify. And so that way we know exactly where we're going prior to leaving the station, even though we know our district, and living here, I know it more than some, but we still want to go to the map because we don't want to make that error. We want to make sure we know where that hydrant is.
Your truck controls the lights, right?
Not all of them, but yes. We do have opticoms that control different lights in Shoreline. Not all of them are
Keep them
controlled.
red.
Right,
so you can get
right.
through.
Yep, because we take oncoming traffic, and so we need to make sure, you know, if we're going emergency. That's why there's sometimes we won't go lights and sirens, because it is a threat to the public. So we make sure we do lots of driving course too. So if you ever wanna be an engine driver, it's a year-long book that you have to go through and study and get sign-offs and do tests, and it's a big deal. And a lot of it's a lot of drive time. So we make sure that we're incredibly safe, not just putting a new person in and taking oncoming traffic. But so that's why we have the Opticom, so we can stop the traffic, so we can get through and to get to that emergency quicker. But
Or
sometimes
fly.
broken bones aren't necessarily lights and sirens, depends what it is. Because we sometimes look, okay, it's not a life-threatening, if it's, you know, an ankle, it's gonna hurt, but it's a greater threat to the community often. So it just depended upon, again, what the person tells the dispatch, helps decide how we handle it. Anything else? 8:33, I thought you said these meetings didn't go, just kidding. That's good, everyone had great
Okay.
questions.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you.
I have some things up here for you if you want them.
Oh, good.
I highly suggest, if you take medications or if you have kids, these are great, they're magnets that go on your fridge. They're very bold, but it helps. This basically tells medications. It can also say, you know, your emergency contact numbers for babysitters, things like that. My oldest daughter is deathly allergic to amoxicillin. Is that important for a babysitter? Not necessarily, unless there's some in the house, who knows. But there's things that we can put on here that is really beneficial for the fire department coming in, especially if you're unconscious and you're allergic to something, and that's what we decide to give you. So, really, really important. So if you'd like one of these, or 2 or 3 or 10, that's awesome. Outdoor burning is starting to happen as soon as the rain stops. So know that it's not us that regulates. This is all through Puget Sound Clean Air Agency. So we'll often get calls, if you ever look at my Facebook posts, smoke in the area, burns, whatever it is. It doesn't mean we won't go and tell them they have to put it out, but at the same time, this will kind of let you know who to call for that. Poison control, always a good one. If we have go-on calls where kids have ingested something, it doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to the hospital. Poison control can tell you this can be flushed out with lots of water. Just keep them hydrated and watch them. We don't have any older adults in here, but this is the fire safety checklist for older adults from FEMA. Even though it's 2012, it still has some really good information in it. Mom, just kidding. Sorry. Okay. And then pets. So this is preparing your pets for emergencies and kind of just for that earthquake that's never going to happen, right? Okay. So there's those. So if you'd like any of these, please take them. Questions, if we can connect, that would be great. And any other?
Okay,
Thank you.
good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have a card?
You know, actually I knew you asked that. I just gave out my last card today. So I'm in the process of getting my next set.